My true story from Texas. My son-in-law stole my credit card. The next day I saw the bill, $75,000, 0 cents on jewelry, and a beach villa for his entire family. I didn't argue. I froze the card and called the police. I lost my credit card. I had kept my card in a zipped pocket of my purse, always. I remember placing it back after paying the grocery bill, but that morning it was gone. No trace, no sound. Just missing. The phone rang again and again in my trembling hand as I stared at the screen. $75,000, 0 cents charged for jewelry, 3 nights at a Florida beach villa, reservation under Hella and guests. My voice quivered as I whispered into the silent room. Payment successful, $75,000, 0 cents. The charges went through because they used online portals without triggering fraud detection. My bank trusted the device ID, same network I had once used in their home. Knuckles white against the smooth glass back, I stepped out of my bedroom, my heart thudding in my chest. Hella? You took my card? My voice cracked. She looked up from her phone with an icy glance. Her lips pressed thin. Her eyes were colder than a January wind. You've been saving for decades, hoarding it like some relic. We decided to spend it. If you don't like that, go ahead, sue us. I swallowed hard, blinking back tears. She spoke with the cool certainty of someone who believed I was nothing more than a piggy bank. My son-in-law Eric sat across from me on the couch, legs crossed, an expression of amused contempt playing on his lips. He lifted his eyes. Yes, I took it, he said, almost lazily. What are you going to do, scream? You're old. How long do you think you've got left? Better we enjoy your money now than let it rot in your drawer. And just so you know, the money was technically Hella's, and if it belongs to Hella, it belongs to me. Capisci, old woman? They were both looking at me, waiting for some sign of outrage, some sliver of resistance or plea. Only silence answered them. I closed my eyes, inhaling slowly. My vision blurred briefly as betrayal cut deeper than any blade. A mother betrayed by her daughter, sold out by her own child, as though the years of care and sacrifice meant nothing. I felt the ache in my chest, like a fist squeezing my heart. Who did this? Who booked the villa? Who chose the jewelry? I asked quietly. Without hesitation, Eric continued. We did. Now you go back to whatever you do in the house, or better yet, you can go call them, make a fuss. He rose from the couch with a stretch, the picture of arrogance, and strode away without another word. Hella still didn't move. She stared at me as if I were some ghost longing to haunt her. An inconvenience, nothing more. My breathing was steady now, though heavy. I looked down at my hands. They trembled, but they were mine. I did not shout. I did not collapse. I did not even cry. In that moment, I realized they had tried to steal more than money. They had taken my dignity. They believed I would plead, beg, or apologize. They thought I would fade into the wallpaper, forgotten, before the day ended. But I would not. Slowly, I turned and walked out the front door of their house. I did not speak. I did not bark demands. I simply left, the click of the door echoing behind me like a verdict. Some part of me expected Madison to chase after me. Maybe she would apologize, explain. I expected Eric to angrily protest, raised voice, broken promises. Maybe they would beg me to stay. But no door opened. No footsteps followed. Only silence. Outside, I leaned against the white picket fence, under the shade of a magnolia tree. The summer sun pressed down like an accusation. I closed my eyes and let the heat settle on my skin. I didn't need to see their faces. I felt what they had done. I pulled out my phone again. My hands were steady now, despite the turmoil inside. I unlocked the screen and paused on the banking app. My fingerprints hovered over the icon. What I did not do in that living room, I would do next. I would not cry. I would not beg. I would not let them continue to treat me like a ghost. I took a breath, and I tapped. The police took my report, but gently warned, "We'll need solid proof, ma'am. Paper, dates, accounts." That's when I knew emotion wasn't enough. I needed a case. No more hidden trips, no more betrayal. Second, I called the police, and I would speak. I would open the door they closed. Because if I stayed silent, they would be free to do it again, or someone else would, and I would be to blame for letting it happen. My world felt unsteady, like a top spun off its axis. But then, in that sunrise moment under the magnolia tree, I felt something bloom inside me. Fear, yes. Sadness, yes. But also resolve. I would not let them steal this, my voice. They thought I would die quietly, like an ember fading, but without my knowledge, that ember was already glowing hotter than ever. I held my breath as I unlocked my phone and pressed the lock card button, watching the screen change its status to inactive. I dropped the phone into my purse without a word and stood up slowly, trying not to let my hands tremble. The dining room, with its polished mahogany table and crystal chandeliers, felt colder than any courtroom. My daughter Hella scoffed, wiping her lips with a napkin, her eyes sharp as broken glass. "Fine," she said lightly, as if I had pressed a harmless button that shut down an overpriced gadget. "Lock it! See how long you can last on nothing." Her tone had no warmth in it, only the smug satisfaction of someone who believes she has won. Her husband, Eric, chuckled and leaned forward. "Maybe we'll put the bill under her pillow and let her think fairies paid for it," he joked. His laughter echoed in the room, then faded into a hollow noise. I felt the heat of their scorn burn me to the bone, but I would not allow tears to steal my dignity. I just looked at them, measured my resolve against their cruelty, and said nothing. They tried to shift the blame. "She's getting forgetful," Hella said to her brother on speakerphone, "so we covered the charges." "That's what children do, right?" I watched the lie spread across their unrepentant faces. They believed the narrative they were spinning, that I was an undependable elderly woman, a liability who couldn't remember whether she ate breakfast, let alone made financial decisions. The night came on slowly, trailing purple dusk across the sky, and I excused myself to the guest room they had set aside for me. The room was perfectly arranged, a bed with crisp white linens, a nightstand with a clock, blackout curtains clipped for perfect darkness, but no one except me was looking. As the family began their evening festivities, I closed the door quietly behind me, silence swallowing me whole. From the small window behind the desk, I could see beyond the manicured hedges to the lights of the villa down the hill. In David's study, the faint glow of screens, laughter drifting up from the pool, clinking glasses as they toasted to each other. It was a charade, every glow, every laugh, a testament to their deceit. They celebrated with stolen money, flaunting prosperity built on theft. As I lay in the bed in the dark, I listened. I listened to their faux championing of my health and generosity. "We're making sure Mom is taken care of." That was their tagline today. They thought they had covered their tracks with fake concern, plausible excuses, and emotional manipulation. I had locked the card, yes, but the real transaction had taken place already. My trust had been stolen long before the villa was booked. So I lay there, in the quiet resignation of betrayal, but also in steely determination. By night's end, I would no longer be a passive victim, cloaked in polite resignation. I would awaken to a tide of consequence gathering just below the surface, ready to break, and the first crack would begin with the night's silence, my silent vow to rise. I did not call the police right away. I tucked the betrayal into the quiet of that night and allowed it to ferment. I understood instinctively that in this digital world, truth often hides in the faintest digital footprints. I would need those traces, each email header, each transaction record, every bit of metadata, to build a fortress of proof. Morning found me at my small desk in the spare room, the same room they had prepped for me. The sunlight streamed past the blackout curtains in thin patterns, illuminating the dust motes in the air like tiny snowflakes. I opened my laptop and began compiling evidence. First, I searched my email inbox for confirmations, flights booked to Florida, villa reservation emails, invoices from a beachfront vendor. One after another, the digital receipts appeared. Villa rental for 3 nights under Hella and guests. Shiny receipts from a high-end jeweler inside Miami. Transaction logs from online portals. I started saving each as PDF, printing them in duplicate, paper and digital, stacking them neatly beside me. Then, I logged into my banking app, reviewed each transaction for the past 7 days. $25,000, 0 cents here for villa deposit, $50,000, 0 cents there for jewelry. Then a storm of smaller transactions, gift shop purchases, private chef reservation, spa booking. It was a tsunami of money, paid for with my name. I took screenshots of each detail, dates, times, merchant names. I transferred them into a folder labeled Evidence, Hella, and Eric, on an encrypted thumb drive I had kept in my jewelry box since filing taxes a decade ago. But numbers and digital records were not enough. I needed someone who could trace the footprints, to confirm that those charges belonged to that villa belonged to that company, and those company accounts traced back to the conspirators. I needed context. I called my granddaughter, a bright recent graduate in information technology, coding and security. It was 10 a.m. when she arrived. When she saw me with a stack of papers, "Grandma, are you okay?" she asked. "I'm better," I said softly, "but I need your help." Together, we traced IP logs and email headers. We verified that the villa reservation email had come from an address registered to the property management company. We followed the bank transaction trail through several intermediary accounts, confirming the money had landed in accounts I did not own. My granddaughter explained how metadata could be used to show that the bookings were made from devices registered in the estate itself, devices they carried. Her eyes hardened as the digital truth appeared in plain sight. "They did this deliberately," she said. "Yes," I said, folding her hug into my mind like armor. "But they did it in a world that leaves fingerprints." Once we had lines of code, screenshots of emails, phone numbers, and device IDs tied to their home network, they moved under the weight of evidence. Now I needed the amplifier. 15 years ago, I had anonymously supported a young journalist named Claire Jackson. I had learned of her work at the time when she was digging into a corporate fraud case. She had been professional, thorough, and her piece had won national recognition. When she lost her job due to budget cuts, I made a modest donation in her name to help her continue freelance reporting. I had tracked her byline since. She was now an investigative reporter at a respected outlet that had a reputation for suing corrupt institutions and exposing real fraud. I found her contact info in my records, email, encrypted messaging handle. I wrote to her quietly that evening. "Dear Claire, I hope this message finds you well. 15 years ago, I supported your important work anonymously. Now, I have evidence that my daughter and son-in-law used my credit card to finance a $75,000 0-cents fraud villa rental, jewelry. I have collected email receipts, banking records, IP metadata, and more. I need someone you trust to vet it. They are powerful socially, but money doesn't speak louder than the truth. Are you interested in covering this story? I would like to remain anonymous until the right moment. Sincerely, May Hudson." I sent the message late at night and waited. The next morning, Claire replied, "I'm in. Send me what you have. Confidentiality guaranteed. Let's do this carefully." I spent the afternoon gathering my evidence into a final packet labeled clearly: 1. Transaction confirmations. 2. Billing receipts. 3. IP logs. 4. Villa reservation records. 5. Jewelry purchase records. I added a chronological timeline. I also included phone-recorded voicemail from Eric bragging about the trip, that he had taken care of this old bag's cash and planned to enjoy every dime. That voicemail clip alone was damning. It confirmed intent, brag, collusion. I attached it. As I clicked send to Claire's secure portal, I exhaled a breath I hadn't realized I'd been holding. Nothing had hit the paper, nothing was public, but I was building something that could not be erased. I felt a pivot within me, one that signified the change from victim to architect. I was no longer collapsing under their brazen theft. I was instead preparing to set the stage for accountability. I was no longer silent, but I would not scream. Yet. I would wait for the moment when facts met the public eye, when evidence would speak louder than tears, when truth would shatter their facade. Claire confirmed receipt and promised diligence. I locked my laptop and leaned against the doorframe, looking at their empty dining room beyond. The house was quiet, but loaded with tension. They thought they had gotten away with it. Soon they would discover how thorough a grandmother could be when betrayed. I closed the door and walked out. I would let the day progress, gather peace in the knowledge that I had done the hard thing. I had remained calm long enough to craft my truth. The next step would be public, but for now, I had laid the stone foundation. I met Claire Jackson at a small cafe off Main Street 2 days after I sent her the evidence. The place was quiet then, mid-morning, soft jazz playing through the speakers and the scent of fresh coffee steaming in the air. I sat at a table in the corner, a stack of papers in my purse, heart pounding beneath my cardigan. When she arrived, she nodded and sat down without preamble. She slid a reputation folder toward me, and I returned the gesture with my own supply. I cleared my throat and pushed forward the document pile. "These are the bank statements," I said softly. "The email confirmations for the villa, the jewelry receipts, IP logs showing devices in their home network booking everything." I watched her scan the papers, noting every name, date, and amount. She clicked her pen slowly. "I also included a voicemail," I continued. "Eric bragging about charging my money as if it were his own." She lifted an eyebrow. She paused. "This is thorough," she said quietly. "You left nothing out. Why now?" Her tone was professional curiosity, not pity. I took a breath. "I don't want money back. I want truth out. I want people to see what these two did. It's not just my card. They stole from me and from everything I stood for. Now I want them exposed." Claire leaned in. "You're not hoping for restitution or an apology, just the story?" "Yes," I said. "It's bigger than me. If I go public, other elders will know. They don't have to stay quiet. We shouldn't be afraid. We don't have to quietly vanish when our money is gone." She nodded slowly and smiled. "That's the angle, then. A Texan grandma who refused to be erased." She tapped her pen against her notebook. "Let me ask, is there anything else you want to share? Something they didn't take?" I paused, then reached into my purse and withdrew a small velvet pouch. I set it on the table. Inside was a modest, yet elegant, single diamond. "I gave this to them," I said. "A gift. A sign of trust for all the years of family and love. My wedding diamond. I understand now that it's better used elsewhere." I placed the pouch closer to her. "If the story runs, I don't want it sold for profit. I want it donated to a charity that empowers women who have been taken advantage of. Something meaningful." She looked at the diamond thoughtfully. "That's powerful," she said. "It's your way of giving back, even after they took from you." I nodded. "I want that diamond to seed something positive. I want them to see that even when they tried to break me, I rebuilt." Claire stood and held out her hand. "Thank you, Mrs. Hudson. I'll take this and everything you've shared. I promise to treat your story with respect and care." She touched the diamond pouch gently, then packed the documents and stood. "Expect a draft within a few days. I need to corroborate and verify everything, but it's solid." She smiled softly, warm. "Your calmness is going to shatter their world." I stood with her. "Thank you," I said. She left. I sat alone, caffeine cooling in my cup, noticing the quiet around me. My side of the cafe felt heavy with new purpose. I watched the door swing behind Claire and realized this was the moment I crossed from being a betrayed mother to a quiet force of truth. I gathered my things and stepped outside. All around, the town was busy. Shoppers, cars, birds. Nothing would ever be the same. I breathed deep, thinking of the diamond I'd left behind. It was more than an object now. It was a promise. Over the next 48 hours, I heard Claire was checking records, verifying the villa rental and tracing the diamond's history. I stayed busy, tended my roses, baked bread for the neighbors, wrote cards to friends. I felt strangely calm. She messaged once, "If your goal is truth, we can run this and do it right." I replied, "Yes, do it for all of us." And I waited. On the morning the New York Times dropped the story titled, "When Family Steals, a Texan Grandma Breaks the Silence," I sat at my kitchen table with a cup of lukewarm coffee and my granddaughter by my side. The headline took over the front page of the online edition, the subhead reading, "How One Elderly Woman's Stolen Credit Card Revealed a Multi-million-dollar Betrayal." I felt a lump in my throat, but it wasn't fear. It was relief. Claire's investigative piece laid out every detail. It described my granddaughter tracing IP logs, Victoria Correction Services, the villa rental firm in Florida, confirming a 3-night stay under the name Hella and guests, the $50,000 0-cents jewelry charges at Marisol Diamonds, and the voicemail recording of Eric boasting, "We finally got her money, good riddance." The article cited email headers, bank statements, and device metadata. It even included photos of the diamond pouch I left the reporter to be donated, now slated for a women's charity auction. The Times article went deep. It explained how Hella and Eric first persuaded me to give them my card to help with small expenses during a visit, then escalated the charges. It quoted from the recording where Eric mocked my age and implied I'd soon die. It noted the timing of the charges right after their wedding announcement during my birthday week and right before the villa check-in. Within hours, the story went viral. Screenshots flooded Twitter and Facebook. Hashtags Mother Money Matters and Last Withdrawal trended. Major news outlets picked it up and local Texan stations ran bite-sized coverage, asking, "How well do you really know your family?" In my email, dozens of supportive messages arrived. Friends, distant cousins, even former neighbors thanked me. One note read, "I thought I was alone when my son did the same thing 2 years ago. Thank you for having the courage to speak up." On the other side, Hella and Eric's social media accounts went dark. Their wedding registry was closed, their joint Instagram, filled with sunlit photos and couple goals captions, ghosted. I saw Eric's FaceTime profile disappear. It was as if their online persona dissolved under the glare of public scrutiny. During lunch, their lawyer reached out to Claire. No apology, no explanation, just a demand. "Please remove all personal data about my clients from future content." Claire replied, "No, this was researched thoroughly. We stand by it." I did not celebrate. My own feelings were quiet. But around noon, I glanced at the window and saw a local news crew filming outside my house. They were lined up across the street, some on lawn chairs, waiting for a statement. I stood at the front door, calm, and offered one. I am not seeking pity, and I do not regret calling out what was done. I only hope other grandparents know they are not powerless. Truth is not rude. Truth is just. As I stepped back inside, the reporter asked, "How do you feel? Vindicated?" I replied, more like, awakened. By evening, Hella posted a short note on a private Facebook group for family. Mom reacted to the article. "She's upset. We're dealing." A few hours later, another update. "Eric is devastated. We are taking a break from everything." But public reaction did not slow. Another tweet. "Nothing hurts more than knowing your own child can just take what is yours." Another. "Guilty until proven innocent." Thank God someone believed her. I felt the pressure on them. I felt them cornered, but I did not taunt them. I simply carried on. I planted my roses, baked a batch of oatmeal cookies for my granddaughter, wrote in my small orchard journal. I had spoken and the world had listened. And in my heart I knew the real change had begun, not just in their reputations or their bank accounts, but in the way families all over the country would pause and ask, could my mother or grandmother be next? I had not screamed. I had not demanded. I had shown up with paper and proof. And in doing that, I had shattered the illusion they built. The Times article was the first blow, the public hammer. And already I felt the walls cracking. Justice, it seemed, was loudest when spoken softly, with honesty. I mailed my complaint to the FBI the morning after the New York Times article ran. I included the full evidence packet, transaction records, villa booking emails, jewelry receipts, IP metadata, my granddaughter's tracing logs, the voicemail clip, and timestamps of their bragging about using my card without permission. I didn't exaggerate or sensationalize anything. Facts only. Weeks later, a special agent from the FBI called. The tone of their voice was calm, professional, but there was an unmistakable edge of seriousness. "Mrs. Hudson, we are opening a federal investigation. We have reason to investigate not only the theft of funds, but potential conspiracy charges related to elder exploitation and insurance fraud." I listened as she outlined the statutes. Anyone who steals from an elderly person, especially when power imbalance is involved, faces heightened charges. "And we have discovered plans that suggest you were considered a liability," the agent continued, "to an inheritance. We have reason to believe they discussed taking further steps." The agents traced a call Eric made to an insurance adjuster, asking about payout conditions after unexpected death during travel. He didn't know those calls were recorded. My heart pounded, but only for a moment. Betrayal had already wounded me deeply. Now it was becoming not just reproachful, but criminal. The word conspiracy floated in the air between us. Within days, I received a subpoena, demands for their phone records, their device logs, surveillance footage from the villa. I didn't want to know the specifics. They had most of what I gave them, but I knew they were building a case beyond a simple credit card theft. This was about plotting, planning, and unethical scheming. One afternoon, Claire sent me a video file and texted, "Watch this. Security camera footage from the villa." My hands shook as I opened the clip on my laptop. The video quality was grainy but unmistakable. I watched them again, Eric and Hella pacing in front of the villa's main door after sunset. They were talking in hushed, urgent voices. I couldn't make out every word, but phrases stood out. "If she collapses, insurance payout, maybe overdose her wine, make it look like medical emergency." My stomach dropped. This was more than greed. It was malice. It was planning to kill me, to make it look accidental so they could sweep up everything. I closed my eyes, tears sliding silently down. The betrayal had mutated into something monstrous. But I also felt an odd calm settle over me. The FBI was watching. I was safe. They could no longer be free to roam with my stolen money or my stolen life. The agent asked me to review the footage. I confirmed it was them. I waited while they documented my affirmation on camera. The question, did I fear for my life at any point? I answered truthfully, yes. Fear wasn't shameful, it was real. Soon their laptops, phones, flash drives, and cameras were taken for analysis. SWAT teams quietly entered the villa in the evening while the couple was away shopping. I didn't want to watch it happen, but I heard from Claire's contact that they found spreadsheets detailing asset liquidation plans and instructions for cover-ups in case I died. Unexpectedly, I didn't breathe the same air in that home again. I stayed with my granddaughter for a night. I watched news segments about federal raids, quietly whispering across cable networks. The story now carried words like elder abuse, conspiracy, planned homicide. It was surreal to hear my life described in these harsh terms, but necessary. The refusal of Hella and Eric to apologize or explain was louder than any statement. Their silence became part of the evidence. The FBI fanned out across my town, visiting neighbors, delivering subpoenas, conducting interviews. I received a courtesy call, telling me they found insurance policies naming them as beneficiaries. Life insurance policies neither of them would ever have been able to claim without me. In the quiet of my apartment that night, I allowed my tears. Not out of weakness, but release. For the first time, I accepted that I had survived more than theft. I had survived betrayal and threat. I had survived the potential loss of my very life. Later that week, I was invited to a closed hearing at a federal building. I sat in a small room with agents, lawyers, and Claire as a representative of the press. My role was witness, not just to crime, but to intent. I told them everything, how I felt when they told me they had used my money, how I slept in fear, how I decided to act methodically instead of emotionally. The hearing lasted hours. They asked about my mental capacity, my state of mind, my concerns about being elderly and vulnerable. I answered honestly, without trembling. There was power in calm testimony. They told me after the hearing that evidence supported their suspicions, not just a credit card theft, but an organized plan to take advantage of me financially, then eliminate me to ensure no one could challenge their actions. My documentation, the villa footage, the insurance papers, the surveillance, it was all building toward a comprehensive case. I left the building in the crisp afternoon air, concrete echoing under my shoes. I felt exhausted, but there was lightness too. I was no longer alone or under threat. The system was now protecting me, not against outsiders, but against my own family. Over the next days, they arrested Hella and Eric separately. The sound of handcuffs snapping echoed like a gavel. I did not feel triumph. I felt relief, closure, safety, the kind that comes when architects of evil are finally exposed. That night, I lit a candle. I whispered a prayer of gratitude, not just for my own safety, but for the dignity reclaimed and the justice that had begun to take shape. I slept in my own bed again, unafraid of shadows. When morning came, I stepped outside, breathed deeply, looked at the sky. I was free from the fear engineered by their greed, and I was still here, still living, still worthy of respect and peace. As FBI agents gathered evidence in that villa far away, I planted a rose in my yard, a symbol of endurance, rooted in hardship, but still blooming. I sat in the courtroom gallery, dressed in a crisp navy suit that reminded me of the dignity I was reclaiming. Across the aisle, Hella and Eric sat in identical gray suits, wrists cuffed, faces drained of the indifference they once wore so casually. The air inside the courtroom was tense, filled with murmurs from journalists and the quiet hum of the air conditioning. The prosecution began by playing a recording of Eric's voice, the one I had captured from his voicemail, the same message he thought was private. He mockingly said, "We finally got her money, good riddance." Then came a second clip from a separate phone conversation where he had threatened his mother-in-law. The judge turned his gaze sharply to him. On the stand, the audio paused. Eric's mouth twitched. He glanced at Hella. The prosecutor pressed, "Is that your voice?" Eric's shoulders slumped. After a long silence, he muttered, "Yeah." Then came the heart of the matter, audio from the security camera inside the villa. It captured him, saying, "Make sure she signs the card. I'll handle locking it later. We're already in deep." He then said, "If she collapses after villa check-in, we play the sad son-in-law card." His voice was resolute, not fear, but planning. I looked at him steadily. There he was, the man who believed I was a bank account he could raid and discard. His admission was more than theft. It was premeditated coercion, betrayal laced with cold strategy. The prosecution moved next to the insurance policies, naming Hella and Eric as beneficiaries. I listened as they detailed the policies. Life insurance linked directly to my retirement accounts. Testimony followed from an insurance expert who explained to the court how such policies are often protected, but when someone stands to profit from another's demise, it becomes suspect. They described how Eric had called the commercial lines department, asking what qualifies as an accidental death payout. A FEMA log revealed he had inquired about the exact timing and possible scenarios. Then they played video surveillance from the villa's driveway, a figure carrying wine glasses, walking toward my bedroom door in the villa, where I was said to be resting. The footage blurred as voices were heard, though not my voice. They couldn't record it here in court, but the transcript was read aloud. "If she doesn't wake up, we say carbon monoxide. We keep everything: inheritance, villa resale, diamond sale." When the prosecutor said they discussed an overnight scenario where she wouldn't wake up for the insurance money, my hands clenched. I thought of the villa nights, the laughter outside my bedroom, and I felt fire ignite within me. The prosecution called me to the stand. I rose slowly, each step a testament to what I had endured. I held the velvet pouch, still containing the single sapphire blue diamond I gave them as a gesture of trust years before, a gift meant to connect us, not to be used to buy their villa getaway. The lawyer asked, "Mrs. Hudson, what is that diamond?" I uncapped the velvet pouch and held the gem between my fingers. "My wedding diamond," I said quietly. "I gave it to them once, as a mother's gesture. Now I donate it to a women's charity in their name, so it cannot be traced back to them." The prosecutor nodded and asked the bailiff to take it into evidence. It was clear, not only did they steal $75,000, 0 cents, they also misappropriated a symbol of affection to sell and finance their profit scheme. Deliberations began the following morning. The jury took less than 2 hours. They found Eric guilty on counts of elder exploitation, grand theft, conspiracy to commit insurance fraud, and attempted homicide. Hella was found guilty of accessory and conspiracy. When the judge delivered the sentence, the gallery held its breath. Eric, life imprisonment with no parole, plus restitution in full. Hella, 25 years minimum, felony convictions, and must remain estranged from all beneficiaries. Both were permanently barred from inheriting any assets in my name. The word guilty reverberated like a bell inside me. I didn't feel triumphant, only steady, resolute. This was justice, not vengeance, and it had been built on evidence, truth, and that single moment when I'd decided silence had a limit. On my way out, reporters asked how I felt. I paused and said, "I feel safe, not vengeful, but I know the truth matters." Weeks later, I quietly retrieved keys to the former beach villa. The property was mine now, offered at a discount by the estate sale. I had set up a retreat for elderly women in crisis, nicknamed Hudson Haven. It was meant to heal, not punish. I kept my granddaughter involved, teaching tech to guests, letting them keep their dignity. In the garden, beneath a blooming magnolia, I placed a carved stone reading, "No one steals your story if you hold on to it." On the anniversary of the verdict, I mailed a printed letter to each neighbor in my hometown. I forgive those who betrayed me, but never forget. If justice can happen, so can hope. May Hudson. I didn't see Hella or Eric again. Their presence had been replaced by quiet laughter at the villa, breakfast chats under shaded porches, elderly women sharing memories of being heard. I still water my roses each morning. I still bake oatmeal cookies, watch the sunrise, and enjoy the gleam of that sapphire diamond shining upon our charity events. My heart is lighter now, not because the pain is gone, but because it no longer weighs on me. I have reclaimed my truth. I have taken back my life. And in doing so, I hope I've shown others that betrayal can be answered with justice, grace, and the promise of brighter days. ChatGPT Denoy. I signed the lease on the beachfront villa quietly, without fanfare. The villa, seized as part of the investigation, went to public auction. No one bid. I bought it under my maiden name, quietly, with the savings they failed to steal. The same villa Eric and Hella used to celebrate their greed is now gently transformed into Mrs. May's Haven, a retreat for older women who are single, lonely, or recovering from betrayal. The rooms are painted in soft seaside hues, the decks trimmed with white wicker rocking chairs, and every morning I walk past the flower beds, planted the day after the verdict, to check on roses and lavender. The grand opening was unceremonious, no ribbon cutting, but a simple ceremony at sunrise. The local press showed up, a few reporters, cameras, and coffee mugs in hand. I stood by the old oak tree on the lawn, the ocean breeze flirting with my hair, and addressed the small gathering. "Thank you for being here," I began, my voice steady despite the pounding of my heart. "They took my money, tried to steal my future, but they could not take my pride. This place is for women like me, strong, brave, sometimes betrayed, but never broken." I paused and looked at each face. Money can be taken, but dignity, when a grandmother stands her ground, that cannot be stolen. Afterward, visitors toured the common room, where bookshelves held memoirs and art supplies. In the back, the kitchen prepared simple meals, and outside, walking paths edged the dune. I watched a small group of elderly women share stories, their laughter carrying lightly out to sea. Every morning, I stroll around to celebrate another day of purpose. I water the garden, rosemary, jasmine, magnolia. Then I sit on the porch and write a message to my granddaughter, so she knows I'm well. Yesterday, I typed, "Good morning, Lily. I see the roses bloom again. I'm here, still growing. Don't rush ahead. I want to watch you grow too." I hit send. She replies with heart emojis and a photo of her at school with a science project. I smile. Life here is simple. I walk on the beach, collect driftwood, teach knitting circles on the veranda. Evenings, I read aloud by lamplight to anyone who wants to stay. We speak of healing, of second chances, and of courage. There is no bitterness in my days anymore. Pain exists, but it's no longer sharp. It's a memory that taught me something vital. That respect isn't given lightly, but earned, and when taken, it can still be reclaimed. Each month I stand on the veranda and watch the sunset. The sky burns orange, then softens to pink over the horizon. I breathe in the salt air. I often think of Eric and Hella, locked away, unable to see this living testament to resilience. Their loss, not just of money, but of soul. But I refuse to let their absence darken my presence. I live fully, purposefully, by the water's edge. And that is victory enough. For me, Mrs. May's Haven isn't just a name, it is a promise. Promising that betrayal can birth compassion, that loss can transform into sanctuary, that a grandmother, no matter how old, can still light the way. So here I stand, a woman who was stolen from, but returned richer, in spirit, in purpose, and in grace. And as the waves roll in each morning and evening, I whisper to myself, I didn't just survive, I thrived. If my story reminded you of someone, a mother, a grandmother, or maybe even yourself, do not walk away in silence. Subscribe to Grandma True Stories for more voices that were once silenced. These are real stories from women who were overlooked, dismissed, or forgotten, but never broken. Here, We do not tell stories to complain. We tell them to remind the world dignity has no expiration date, and when a grandmother speaks, the world listens. See you in the next story. From a quiet porch in Texas, Grandma May.